Hey, this is Sam. Thanks for listening to BNS About Movies. Remember, you can find a lot more movies on the site, bnsaboutmovies.com. You can reach out directly to me. Often I will reply to you instantly. It's like we're having a conversation at bnsaboutmovies@gmail.com. We also have, if you go to the site, or if you look on the post here or the video, wherever you're listening to it, we have a coffee that you can donate to. You don't have to. But if you do, I'll do a whole episode about any movie you want. Yeah, if you want me to watch a Merchant Ivory movie, I will. But this week, we're not watching any of that. We're watching Love Lines from 1984, a movie that tells us that all high schools are interconnected and informed by a telephone service run by J.D. Prescott that helps teens fall in love while also sponsoring a battle of the bands, which seems like the kind of business model that I'd love to see someone explain to a bank. Anyway, J.D. Prescott's played by Michael Winslow. Who is that? Well, he's the guy who makes noises from Police Academy. If you don't know who that is, you're young and you haven't had the benefit of watching Police Academy.
What are you in for?
I'll show you. Damn it, stop that! Oh, no, sir. No, not you.
That's terrific. Really.
So I'm going to, again, it feels like lately I've been really, as the kids say, standing for Police Academy. Yeah. Anyway. There's two kids that are destined to fall in love, and they're Piper, who's played by Mary Beth Evans. She was Kayla for a long time on Days of Our Lives. And Rick, Greg Bradford, who was in Zapped, Let's Do It, and some other movies without exclamations in their title, like Skate Town, USA. They go to rival schools that are at war with each other, Malibu High School and Coldwater Canyon High. And they're the lead singer of their respective bands, the Firecats and Racer. Now, as Teen Movie Fate would have it, they're about to face off against one another in the final of the Battle of the Bands that's being run by J.D. Prescott, and no one wants them to stay a couple. Don Michael Paul, who would go on to direct sequels to movies you didn't know had sequels, like Kindergarten Cop, Jarhead, The Scorpion King, the last three Tremors movies, Snipers, Lake Placid, and non-sequel fare like Half Past Dead, and Who's Your Caddy?
Who's Your Caddy?
Shows up in this. So does Tammy Taylor, who is Bondi in Don't Go Near the Park. And Godzilla, Piper's maniac older brother, is Frank Zagarino, who is in everything from Where the Boys Are to Tanzan Ultimate Mission, Striker, and Shadow Chaser. So obviously I've watched several of his movies. Love Lines is directed by Rod Amato, who made some baffling movies along the way, like The Statue, one of the few movies that Roger Ebert ever walked out on, so just imagine, as well as High School USA, the movie that convinced Joel Robinson to leave Hollywood, plus Son of Hitler, a Peter Cushing movie that never played outside of Germany, and of course, the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
My God, it's Cousin Charlie.
This track record should explain exactly what kind of movie Love Lines is. Really, you should watch this movie to see Miguel Ferrer show up for a split second and play the drums. That's my review right there. If this comes out on Blu-ray someday, that's the quote I want on the cover. Buy this just so you can see Miguel Ferrer play the drums. BNS About Movies. I mean, come on. Vinegar Syndrome, whoever wants to put out Love Lines out. It seems like sex comedies, teen sex comedies don't come out that often on Blu-ray. And is it because they're almost all the same movie? Yeah, I'd argue a bit that they are. But on the other hand, I don't know. I have an affection for them. Affection for them. I have an affection for them. Maybe because, I grew up in a time before the internet. Well, the internet may have existed, but only in colleges and military bases, right? And dial-up. You had to have like a dial-up modem to be on the internet, and then you would look at a C art, and that's not that sexy, right? So if you wanted to get that feel of being an adult, like this is what it's going to be like to be an adult, you watch the teen sex comedy. Let's double up. Let's talk about another teen sex comedy right here.
He was graceful.
I'll take off mine if you take off yours.
Sophisticated.
Strip poker?
Dashing.
I am not an animal.
The girls were wild for him.
And you're disgusting and you're gross.
Can I call you tomorrow?
Because he was destined to become the original party animal.
I'm a party animal.
Party animal. Rated R.
I'm a party animal.
And David Beard seems like the least likely person to direct a teen sex comedy or a boner movie or a lemon popsicle or whatever we want to call it. He's born in Shreveport, Louisiana. He made his way to Chicago's Goodman School of Drama, and by the age of 19, he was already being hailed by the Chicago Tribune as a young man who will one day be a consummate and famous actor. You probably didn't know who he was. That didn't come true. He won the Joseph Jefferson Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for his performance in the play The Hot L Baltimore, and soon after founded the Wisdom Bridge Theater, which was inspired by a subtitle he read on a painting. The bridge to wisdom is in the continual asking of questions. As his obituary suggests, David used his plays to ask questions. The Wisdom Bridge, he staged avant-garde productions of Cyrano de Bergerac and Twelfth Night, while doing his own story of Socrates called Dignity, and even a stage version of the comic strip The Wizard of Id. Due to health issues, he left the theater in 1977. and headed out west, which led to him directing movies. According to an article in the Los Angeles Times around the time that this movie was made, The Party Animal would be the movie that would start his Hollywood career. Baird said, I found out that I can only sell this sort of film and only on the basis of terms. It was my breakthrough. One movie in, and he was already showing signs of burnout, saying, this is movie making at its most crass. It's no great accomplishment to achieve nudity and violence. You can buy them. He also referred to the great gulping appetite for tastelessness in this teen-oriented genre. I watched grown men of 50 to 60, top executives in major film companies, sit around in three-piece suits and argue for half an hour about whether or not to put a whole nipple onto the widescreen. And I heard some of them say with a very straight face that perhaps only half a nipple would be far more tasteful. Even with all those nipples on screen, or half nipples, David tried to get his sister Joanna to bring her teenage son to watch this movie, as he was the target audience. She refused and told the paper, I'm really angry that a man as talented as David has to make a movie this junky just to get started in Hollywood. It makes me very, very sad. And I'm talking about this movie as if it's an accomplishment. I just want you to know that. His next film for the same producers, International Film Marketing, was 1982's Octavia, the modern-day fairy tale of a blind girl who was abused by her father and eventually assaulted by a convict. Now the Los Angeles Times claims it was his second, but IMDb said it was made in 82, and, who knows? IMDb, you shouldn't believe it. Anyways, this film and Octavia list writer Alan C. Fox is both writer and executive producer, going as far to say that The Party Animal is based on a story by Fox. If you're looking for someone to blame, that's who to blame. As for International Film Marketing, they also brought you Night of the Demons, Surf 2, a movie that is the first movie and not Surf 1, Too Scared to Scream, Scared Stiff, and Soul Survivor. So I'd say those are pretty good, or you could say those are pretty scuzzy. You know what side of the fence I live on. Anyway, the movie that most would know Bear for is 1986's My Chauffeur, which has Deborah Foreman fall in love with Sam J. Jones, the son of her boss, played by E.G. Marshall. It's a screwball comedy that seems out of step with the raunch of the 80s and has a great cameo by Penn and Teller. He followed that with Pass the Ammo a year later, and that movie has a cast, Bill Paxton, Tim Curry, Andy Potts, Night Slasher Brian Potts, no relation, Anthony Sergeti Gary, and It Takes Two a year after that, also with Anthony Gary in the cast. Is this going to become an Anthony Gary podcast? It could. Again, we go back to the obituary and learn his films had commercial success and led to other offers, not all of which he wanted to pursue. Leaving the movies behind, David founded the Whitefire Theater in Sherman Oaks. There he wrote the play Scorchers when he wasn't teaching acting, giving newcomers a chance to work in his theater in exchange for the tuition. Movies were never far away, however, as in 1991, that play became a film directed by Baird. And it starred a cast that included Faye Dunaway, James Earl Jones, Denham Elliott, Jennifer Tilly, Luke Perry, Patrick Warburton, yes, Anthony Gary. It also featured David's lifelong friend and collaborator, Leland Cook, delivering the opening soliloquy. He also created the Fox series Key West, which ran for 13 episodes in 1992. In the series, Fisher Stevens wins the lottery and follows Hemingway's inspiration to go to the Florida town and be a writer. Working for network television didn't seem to work well for Baird, who went all in and wrote, directed, and produced the series. While he made one more movie in 2008, The Civilization of Maxwell Bright, what is astounding is that one of his plays, 900 Onetta, played the Old Vic in London, New York's Historical Repertory Theater, and LA's Odyssey Theater. So as we look at the life of this film creator, I'm struck by just how much people loved him and how much he loved life and being creative. His website is filled with stories of how he treated and mentored people. It says that he went out of his way to encourage and celebrate the creativity of others and saw it in his own relaxed and tolerant way to support his friends and family. It also says he had faith in his personal artistic vision and tried to protect it from whatever Southside experts or critics said. Well, he'll never read this, but if he does, if there's some other world or reality that allows him to hear it or listen or whatever about long-winded nerds writing about teen sex comedies when they should maybe be talking about better movies, maybe he'll like the fact that I spent some time considering his life and how it can inform mine. And I can't believe the same guy I just told you about made this movie. Pondo Sinatra, who is Matthew Cossey, now Dr. Matthew Cossey, a senior lecturer in the School of Drama, Film, and Music at Trinity College Dublin, who received his BFA from the California Institute of the Arts, MA from New York University, and his PhD from Stanford University. Keep this in mind as you hear about this movie. Arrives at his first day of college as a literal pun come to life. He falls off a turnip truck. It's a joke you'll see coming miles away. This also feels quite strange from the beginning as it's structured as both a comedy where the camera can move and change shots, but also a documentary of the life of Pondo after he's become famous. This strange break of the rules of filmmaking continues throughout, but even in the life story of Baird, it's mentioned they didn't realize he was the one who said action or cut at this stage of his career. He'd only done plays, so who knows how he was approaching this movie. Thanks to the website The Unknown Movies, which is a great site, we also learned that Baird wasn't alone in the director's chair. Harvey Hart, who was directing TV all the way back to 1955, was also on hand. It's unclear what capacity, but Hart was a vet. He worked on stuff like Dark Intruder, The Star Lost, The Pix, episodes of Columbo, Peyton Place, The Wild Wild West, and more. My theory is that one of the other directors shot the interview footage and then the other shot the rest of the film, edited it together, which explains why some shots at the end are reverse and bits seemingly start or close with an explanation. I just really believe there was no coverage for these shots, and when they put it together, they said, oh well. But back to Pondo. There's nothing our protagonist wants more than to get laid. He wants to have sex so bad that he'd sell his soul for a piece of ass, at which point a blonde woman who never speaks in the movie perks up. And hey, it's Satan! He gets coached in the ways of wooing Studley. Tim Carhart shows up in everything from Beverly Hills Cop 3 and Ghostbusters to Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, and Black Sheep. He tries everything to get Pondo into the stack with a willing partner. He even does that in the scene from Cyrano, a call back to Baird's days of Chicago stage directing, by coaching him through trying to win over one lady in the woods. But it's easy to see why Pondo can't get any. He's in his mid-20s. Spoiler, he's 26. Even secondary spoiler, if his tombstone said he died at 22. Always wearing a Rebel flag shirt. Has a room filled with rebel flags and looks just like he smells of pimento olive sweat. Amazingly, he's played as someone who grew up to write scholarly pieces like The Ethics and Anxiety of Being with Monsters and Machines, thinking through the transgenic art of Edward Quark. Studley's teaching techniques are also supplemented by lessons from a janitor named Elbow, Jerry Jones, who the arty side of me would know from The Long Goodbye. But come on, he's in Rudy Ray Moore's movies. But that doesn't work either. This movie is less episodic and more kaleidoscopic, but at one point we're in a male strip club for no reason, and one guy, sans knee pads, does the wild spinning jump that almost broke Johnny Castle in Dirty Dancing. And the irony is that this guy doing Dirty Dancing 3 years before that movie is not lost on me. And just as soon as we comprehend that, Pondo's on stage performing the song Party Animal before he sees the devil. Upset that he can't get any while Studley is in the midst of a menage a trois, he decides to kill himself. But his friend says, please let him try. Smash cut. Pondo is getting looked at by a nurse who is played by Joan Dykeman, perhaps the only person I could think of that is in sex comedies like this and Weekend Pass, as well as Cassavetes' Love Streams, when he tells her that his hooter is broke. A hooter is not what you call a penis, by the way. I just want to get that across. This movie confounds me because it literally has moments where it tries to deconstruct comedy while ever following or establishing the rules. Like the Cyrano scene, does the girl know Studley is talking to Pondo? She can see it, right? And in this, doesn't the nurse realize that Pondo should perhaps be in a place where people can work on his mental health and not his physical health? That's why PCP use the 7-question generalized anxiety disorder test now. Also, Pondo has on a Rebel Flag polo. Where does one get a Rebel Flag polo? The weird van near my house that puts up 50 hate-filled right-wing shirts every weekend. People line up and I scream stuff at them as we drive by, but we drive by so fast that all they hear is, "Ah!" And that's their language, and they think I'm on their side. I mean, I'm not buying one of these shirts. The nurse then fixes his small balls with a mallet. Let's take that out. Let's fix that. Okay, wait. I said small, I guessed. The nurse then fixes his balls with a mallet. Everywhere you go on this campus, women are sunbathing, on water slides, doing aerobics, and even if they're reading, they just wink at you as if to say, I'm kidding. I think this book makes me look nerdy smart hot, don't you? All while the convertibles, she's just a girl plays as if we're in on the joke, but you can never be sure. After another three-way for Studley and another suicide attempt for Pondo, this movie is filled with suicide attempts. They can't understand one another. He takes the gun out and kills one of the girls in bed with Studley and apologizes, who says, that's all right, and no one reacts. Are we in the real universe or in like a Zaz universe, like a Naked Gun world where things can just happen and it's like a cartoon? Or is Pondo a murderer? The movie never tells us. After chanting, hound dog is going to eat that pussy.
Hound dog is gonna eat that pussy. Hound dog. Hound dog. One more. Hound dog's gonna eat that pussy.
Pondo goes to an all-black party, which is exactly where you don't want this movie to go to, of course.
Hey, now that's what I'm talking about. Hey, you ain't a man till you made it with a 10.
He shows up in an outfit that Huggy Bear would think was going too far. Like, this is sub-Anthony Michael Hall in a Blues Club racism here. That's a scene that upsets me to this day. Anytime I think of a movie where Anthony Michael Hall goes to a blues club and talks black.
Sane? Crazy?
I was nuts for the woman, man. Now you gotta believe me. I'm telling the truth here. I'm speaking to you. I mean, I was nuts for the girl. And what did it to me was these big titties she had. For a 13-year-old girl, man, she wouldn't have had to worry about no titties for the rest of her life, boy. You know, she was set and she was looking good, son.
That's the truth.
And everybody accepts him. Like, he should be dead in the street, right? And nothing against Anthony Michael Hall. It's against his characters. We can only assume that Pondo's being murdered. Studley has a snake-charming belly dancer perform for him at the same time. Then we cut to another scene where Pondo's army crawling into a panty raid. You're wondering, would Pondo dress like a woman and play strip poker with a whole group of ladies and look as unconvincing as Peter Scolari? Then yes, you're right. Will this be the scene that my wife walks in the middle of and just shake her head at me? Yeah. Again, after the strip poker doesn't work, Pondo claims he will sell his soul for said piece of ass.
I'd sell my soul for a piece of ass.
Don't say that.
It's true.
Well, I know it might be true, but don't say it out loud.
I'd sell my soul for a piece of ass.
Comedy works in threes. This at least gets that right. Satan shows up, but there's no payoff. Pondo then gets a punk rock makeover, looking more like Quasimodo than a punk. And this movie has brutalized me. Y'all are brutalizing me.
Y'all are brutalizing me.
point where a scene of our protagonist being chased by villagers with torches and pitchforks made me laugh. Then it has an Elephant Man reference. Do you need to change references from Frankenstein to the Elephant Man that quickly? Just looking at the picture of him as a punk, it's beyond movie punk, is ridiculous. So at that point, he's still a Quasimodo and he goes to a bordello. I use bordello instead of Jack Shack or any other term. This movie is a cartoon and now it decides not to be, as Pondo breaks the fourth wall for the first time and says,
Damn. All dressed up, no place to go.
I've been Stockholm Syndrome by this movie because I've watched it so many times. It is filled with male gaze. There's slow motion running. There's so much padding. I have the feeling this is two movies, an art film by Baird and Fox and Hart thinking anyone could make one of them teenage sex comedies, and maybe it's somewhere in between. Finally, after Studley and Elbow have a heart-to-heart, it's time for Satan and Pondo to meet as he has nightmare visions of women and stares at himself in the mirror. He later says, I see that girl everywhere I go. I'm even dreaming about her. They still don't meet. Pondo goes to a party where he shotguns a beer, rolls a gigantic joint that he lights with a torch, takes an entire bottle of pills, and drinks a can of Coke. He then brings out an entire gigantic mirror and fills it with more cocaine than the entire budget of Scarface, and cuts it with a butcher knife before cops arrive to watch him do a mountain of it. Then the cops beat him into oblivion. He wakes up covered in Coke, and that's when Satan appears. He is raised from the dead in a vampire movie looking moment that looks as if it was lit by Mario Bava and directed by Gregory Dark before he wakes up in his own bed. Pondo can't ride a bike. That's the whole scene. That's what's fun. We don't go right into him suddenly having the power to get women. He can't ride a bike. This movie is so weirdly edited. He goes to Sex R Us. It's a porn store. Advertising gay bondage and TV. For some reason, the film goes to black and white here while we look at realistic cocks. You may think it's because there's supposed to be security footage, but I also think it's a Sam Raimi trick, where if these penises are in black and white, not flesh-toned, like how the Deadites have multi-hued blood, they can still get an R. Meanwhile, the front desk guys debate the salt missile talks. One sounds exactly like Marlon Brando. Why?
You know what this is about? This is about the SALT talks. You know what the SALT talks are?
Yeah, sure, boss. Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty.
That's right. That's very good.
I don't know. I think this is the art movie side of this, and it's one long stage theme, two actors, and it breaks the film. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. So Pondo asks for help with women and buys the MX missile of vibrators. Now, after an entire movie where Pondo can't find a woman, he's suddenly in bed with a really attractive one, and he's dressed like Napoleon, not explained. The Buzzcocks' Why Can't I Touch It plays. Song about not being able to trust your own senses, and he blows up the MX missile, and you figure that everyone has died, and again, the movie breaks the rules it never established. If he can get this girl, why isn't he just sleeping with her? Why does he have this outfit on? How did we get here? Why is there a bomb? Pondo is alive, and he's back at his dean's office, and this is where the movie remembers it's a teen sex comedy and needs some homophobic humor. So what's wild is the dean's secretary is played by Leland Cook, the very song lifelong friend of Baird that he wrote the long soliloquy for in Scorchers. He knew this guy since they were in Chicago. He was even in Cyrano with him, and here he is playing the most mincing of roles and the most aberration of the film. But hey, we're in Hollywood. The dean is the woman, and she is rubbing the missile dildo. Nothing happens. Professor Schmidt is lecturing his class while Blonde winks at him. Yes, these are how the smash cuts work. This teacher is played by Frank Gelati, who wrote The American Clock and The Accidental Tourist, also a Chicago theater veteran. He was in the Wisdom Bridge Theater plays and directed a lot of plays at the Steppenwolf Theater. Pondo asks, what's an aphrodisiac? And he tries to make one in the lab. The first batch takes all the hair off of a girl. Why? Again, why? Also, I remember when I was in high school and we were reading about organisms, and one girl said orgasm instead of organism because she didn't know the difference, and I was the only person that laughed, and the teacher sent me to the office. I think my knowledge of sex and being a young affable, as Grindhouse Releasing referred to me, an affable pervert, the teacher should have said, this kid's funny. Nope, to the office. How do you explain that at the office? Pondo stays in his lab like a mad scientist, and he keeps trying out formulas on another woman. One spray of it even turns her into an ape. Again, if he can get girls into his Carnon lover's lane, why does he need this aphrodisiac? Two women sneak in, and Pondo has his formula switched out for gas pills before Studley sets him up with Sophia, who is Lucy Rosas. She's a stand-up comedian who made Anne Hathaway laugh and accept her condition in the movie Love and Other Drugs. An Italian student who's dressed in a white suit, something like Sylvia Christel would show up in. For some reason, we're back to a traditional narrative, and Pondo feeds her the pills, thinking they're going to get him laid. As you can imagine, they make her ass sound like the New York Ripper. Quack, quack, quack.
Non capisco. Non mi era mai capitato. Saranno stati quelli spaghetti americani di ieri sera. Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia.
Only King Frat has a fart scene that seems to last longer, and someone dies in that one. I misspoke she lights a match in the car, and the car explodes, and she dies. This movie is filled with death for women. Pondo's back in the dean's office, and all the women he's hurt, which gradually pans back to reveal a bald woman, an ape, the burned-up Italian woman, someone bandaged, a woman with a beard, a werewolf, a skeleton with arms folded, someone that looks like Bernie Casey from Gargoyles, the old witch from The Haunt of Fear, and one that looks like Figure and Don from the Cantina Band. And did you know that the music the Cantina Band plays is called Jizz? And George Lucas is really funny. Not a pretty sight, is it, Pondo asks the dean. He gets thrown out of school and goes back to the lab to clean it up as he's pouring the chemicals on the sink. Miranda, who might be the devil, is played by Susan Ashley. She was in Private Passions, No Justice with Cameron Mitchell and Camille Keaton, and a cameo from Donald Farmer, and an episode of Dream On. Remember that show? A show that gave you clips of old movies and at least one guaranteed nude scene, so if you were 14, watch Dream On. Makes the chemicals work. Holly, a girl who just minutes ago scoffed at him, slaps him around and takes him right there in the chemistry classroom. There's a montage of them being tender, followed by her attacking him, which made me laugh. But when Pondo cleans the formula off his hands, he watches the way the chemicals have got him laid. He gets back in the lab just in time to save it before Elbow pours it down the sink. He drinks the entire formula, pours it on his head, and soon he has a satin tiger jacket on. It's almost like we're in Drive for a second, and sunglasses. His women crawl to be near him, and the song that plays in the scene, Rain by Dream 6, is awesome. Dream 6, in case you're wondering, is Concrete Blonde. They would later become Concrete Blonde. As Miranda looks on wearing all red, Pondo walks confidently through campus as lights turn on each building. Women leave the beds of their lovers. Even Studley loses women to Pondo and can only watch. Why is there a Napoleon poster in the scene? Is there a less subplot about Napoleon? And all we can do is wonder. Pondo yells, "I'm a party animal." Everybody cheer like Pee-wee because we got the title in it.
I'm a party animal.
Pondo doesn't look as cool as he used to and is back to his rebel flag look, but Asselli takes notes and tracks down how his powers work, like Elizabeth Sullivan using a stopwatch to track Miracle Man's speech in the Alan Moore revival. Even at a half mile, his powers can lure any woman. The Untouchables are in this scene playing the general at a party. They go to Eiffel Tower, where the hottest women on campus live, and no man has ever made it to the third floor. A leering Pondo does it, while Studley can only watch and track his time. In the middle of all this sweaty sex, there's still time to make fun of an overweight woman, because this is the 80s. Ugh, the 80s. Pondo goes to see the dean and is assaulted by the secretary who tries to hypnotize him and pulls out a tube of KY jelly. The new dean is a larger black woman, allowing 2 jokes about weight within the same scene. God damn it. All Pondo wants to do is sleep and read comic books, but women can't leave him alone. As Miranda looks on, he's chased by so many women, it looks like either Richard Lester or George Romero directed the scene.
Every woman I see wants me. That's wonderful. No, it's terrible, Studley. I have been greedy. I'm like King Midas. Everything I touch turns to poontang.
This movie is just remembered it's supposed to be a documentary as talking heads explain what happened to Pondo, and then we cut back to Pondo hiding in a laundromat filled with more heavy women because, heavy women are funny. Once they realize he's in their midst, elephant noises play, and then we see Pondo's grave. Elbow says for a white boy, he did all right, which is a lot like that Better Off Dead line, another teen movie filled with death.
Man, that's a real shame when folks be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that.
Sully lights a cigarette. He's cool again. Pondo is reincarnated as a bunny with a rebel flag. Miranda watches the same road that Pondo came in on as the Buzzcocks play us out. I would never say The Party Animal is a good movie. It's a confounding one. I have no idea how it even adds up. But I laugh. I don't regret the time that I spent with it. Where it really succeeds is the soundtrack. Beyond the songs I mentioned, also has I Don't Mind, Harmony in My Head, and Everybody's Happy Now by the Buzzcocks. Right Side of a Good Thing and Roman Gods by the Flesh Tones. War Across the Nation by Chelsea. No Peace Through Chemistry by the New Marines. Kill the White Man by Gerald McCond. And Goin' Mental by Gazmo. The UK video release of this has a different soundtrack slightly, as the male strip club scene has Roman Gods by the Flesh Tones. But Radio Free Europe by R.E.M. is in it, and that same song shows up in the porn scene. I love that Radio Free Europe is probably the first movie to ever use an R.E.M. song in a porn scene. Probably the only one. They must have felt like Bono and the Edge when I Will Follow scored an abortion scene in The Last American Virgin. Someone's made a Spotify playlist. I'll share it. There's also a Mystic Records spunk hardcore compilation called The Party Animal that came out in 1984 that has no effects playing Ant Attack. I have no idea how the soundtrack happened, but I learned this movie was filmed in a shutdown college in Illinois near Iowa. And a lot of the visuals from the movie, especially when Miranda appears, look a lot like Steve Miller's video for Abracadabra. The same director of that video, Peter Kahn, did the video sequences in RoboCop and George Clinton's video for Atomic Dog. In French-speaking Canada, this was called Campus Aphrodisiac. In Finland, it means Just in Mind. In France, it was called A Crush of Madness, while in Norway, it was called The Company Lion. The Womanizer at the Animal Party in Peru, A Sociable Beast in Poland, A Real Man is a Wanker in Russia, and Party Animal, Der Jip Deja Blues Spect. Party Animal, the man who blows every blouse. That was also in Germany. So, yeah. Obviously, this movie is why the world hates our country, amongst many other reasons that I won't get into, to break you out of trying to avoid the real world. Now, for the final story, when The Party Animal made more than $1.5 million in its first 2 weeks, International Film Marketing offered Baird 6 figures to make Revenge of the Party Animal. He replied, never. So there was this video club at a theater. I've talked about this theater before in Pittsburgh that I hate. It's the same theater where they wrung their hands about El Topo. They played this on one of their video, I think it was like Video Vortex or something. They were just ripping off the Alamo, showing old VHS tapes, and people saw this movie and were so upset by it. They threatened lawsuits and they wrote letters to the editor of their local free paper about how horrible it is. It's not. It's an 80s teen sex comedy, and yes, its morals are 40 some years ago, right? Or today, nothing's really changed. Let's get over it. I don't know why people get so upset about culture when outside their door there's so much else wrong going on. Again, I don't want to remind you of what's going on in the real world, but come on, it's the Party Animal. Anyway, you know what? This has been a long episode. Let's do one more. We did The Party Animal and we did Love Lines. What movie ties in both of those? Oh, yeah. Party Line from 1988.
Hey, baby. These lips have been to places that aren't even on the map.
Explorer, I want to meet you.
You're wild, aren't you? I like that.
Who are you people?
Well, you got the party line, sweetheart. 976.
976.
It's all over the place.
Party line.
It's the new way to get together.
Some call for a fun time.
I'm here, baby.
Some call for a hot time.
You name it, I like it.
Some call for the last time.
I swear to God, I had no idea that she was married. You didn't say you were married.
Say you're sorry.
Party line. Some talk. Some listen. Some die.
This is the most 1988 movie I've ever seen. One equal parts Cinemax After Dark semi-sleeves filled with some of the last gasps of celebrity fame, along with the late model slasher and even Giallo-esque elements, all with the gimmick of party lines, which was before the internet used to dominate the late night airwaves, thereby tying this movie into the other films we've talked about, promising live sex over the phone for anyone. Oh man, you could scrape this movie onto a mirror and do lines of coke off of it. Party line. Seth, played by Leif Garrett. Come on, he's from the Devil Times 5, but also he is a big deal, right? And he was a big deal. And that character from Devil Times 5 was a transvestite, and so was this character. So could this be a sequel to Devil Times 5, a.k.a. People Toys, a.k.a. The Horrible House on the Hill? Yeah. He and his sister, Angelina, Greta Blackburn, she was on V. Our brother and sister duo hide out in their family's Hollywood Hills mansion and use party lines to lure people into having 3 ways with them and then slashing their throats with razor blades. Sex is violence, LA scum. It's like The Black Room without the vampire stuff. But what if there was a bad boy cop? What if his name was Detective Dan? And what if he was played by Richard Hatch, who once fought Cylons? He's under investigation for all his bad cop antics, but when his chip woman gets killed by Seth, he teams up with Sean Weatherly, who knows a thing or two about cops. She was in Police Academy 3 back in training, right? To take on the case. This is the kind of movie where Detective Dan handcuffs a cokehead to a toilet for shoving his face into a urinal cake while 2 siblings sex murder a dude in an alley. And because this is a late 80s cop movie, the boss cop is an older, gruff black guy. And hey, Richard Roundtree is open. Let's get him. The guy who played Simmons in this, Terry McGovern, is pretty interesting. Sure, he's the voice of Launchpad McQuack, but he's also the guy who invented the term Wookiee. While making THX 1138 for Lucas, they were riding in a car together and he shouted, "I think I ran over a Wookiee back there," which made the future Star Wars director laugh so hard that the word, which McGovern invented, stuck in his head. William Webb, the director, used Garrett Roundtree in a lot of his films, including Delta Fever, which has Martin Landau and Wendy Jo Sperber in it. And if you know who Wendy Jo Sperber is, let's be best friends. And The Banker, along with Terry Weigel and Robert Forster, another Giallo. This is the kind of movie I'd watch at 1:30 in the morning on a Friday when I was 16 years old. So in case you thought, did Sam ever do anything productive or just watch a lot of movies and get fat? Good news. At least now I write about the movies and don't just watch them. I almost forgot that this teenage girl is coercing her friend into calling the party line. Then she goes to the cops, and they make her call the party line while they listen, basically to have phone sex. So this movie riffs on I Saw What You Did, but there's no Joe Crawford in it to make it better. The nightclub in this also totally looks like it came out of a Ren Stream movie. If you know what that means, you're a pervert. Anyway, that's BNS Bump Movies, a half an hour of what it's like to be inside my head. I love you for listening. Please comment, like, share, do all those things. Ring the bell. I don't know what the else you do. Thanks for listening.